Welcome back, accomplices. We hope you had a good week so far and are ready for your weekly dose of TTMV.
With Chad Daybell's trial over, we don't have much in the way of updates, but luckily Sarah Boone and the lovely Justin Timberlake are keeping us all on our toes.
Oh, Sarah, you never cease to amaze me. If you remember, on last week's episode, Sarah had another letter for the judge and was crying about her new and 8th attorney, quote, being mean to her. Well, just days after Sarah appeared in court on June 6th, her attorney, Patricia Cashman, filed a motion asking to withdraw from the case. The request cites irreconcilable differences, including, but not limited to, ethical considerations. Good luck to the judge to find Sarah an attorney that she can get along with so we can get to her long-awaited trial.
In other news, Mr. JT was arrested on June 18th for a DWI. Timberlake claimed he only had one martini before he was pulled over and failed a field sobriety test. It is alleged that JT had traces of Molly, Coke, poppers, and Truvada, which Truvada is a prescription drug used to treat and prevent HIV and hepatitis B. So sounds like someone is bringing sexy back. Of course, he was arraigned and released without having to post bail just 9 hours after being arrested. So if OJ wasn't enough, this is just more proof that celebs can pretty much get away with anything.
Yep.
Nevertheless, Justin pled not guilty and was ordered to appear in court on July 26th, 2024. His Forget Tomorrow World Tour should be properly renamed to Forget Yesterday when I got a DWI tour.
Oh, we expected more from you, Justin. Really tearing up my heart. Speaking of heartbreak, we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for some of the terrible crimes people commit. So let's get to the case.
All right. So this week I am doing William Clyde Gibson. So William Clyde Gibson III was born October 10th, 1957 in Raleigh, North Carolina. He was the youngest of 4 children born to William Jr. and I believe it's Jerlene or Jerry Gibson. I found that William prefers to go by Clyde, so that is how I will be addressing him in today's story. So Clyde's father was a foreman for a tree trimming company, and his mother was a cashier at a Sears store. Jesus. Can I fucking read? When William was 2 years old, the family moved to New Albany, Indiana, and that is where he would grow up. In interviews about his upbringing, Clyde claimed that he had never experienced any abuse or neglect from either of his parents and was even somewhat spoiled. But he did acknowledge that his father was an alcoholic who would become combative when drunk. From an early age, Clyde displayed odd behavior. He had trouble speaking to others. He struggled in school and preferred to stay home with his mother. Whenever he went to school, Clyde was bullied until the 6th grade when he became big enough to defend himself. However, when that happened, Clyde started bullying other children. He would often get in trouble for fighting, talking in class, and not following directions. Same. His behavior continued outside of school with his childhood friend, Melody Schultz. So Melody claimed that Clyde had shot another child in the eye with a pellet gun. At age 13, he started drinking and later that year was arrested for stealing a motorbike. Eventually, he dropped out of school and continued to commit quote-unquote small-time crimes, including, but not limited to, crashing a car while driving drunk. 2 weeks after this incident, he joined the army and was stationed in West Germany as a mechanic. During his deployment, he was awarded badges for marksmanship and hand grenade usage. But at the time, he developed an addiction to drugs like heroin, cocaine, and LSD, which he often mixed with alcohol.
Because why not?
Yeah. In 1979, Clyde was dishonorably discharged for stealing a car and sentenced to a year of imprisonment at Fort Leavenworth, where he attempted suicide by slitting his wrists. After his release, he married an artist in June of 1980. After he was diagnosed with infertility, he turned to drugs yet again and was said to have been smoking upwards of 20 marijuana joints per day. First, I would like First, I would like to point out that marijuana is not a drug. And second, 20 joints, those are rookie numbers. Gotta bump those numbers up.
You gotta bump those numbers up.
Gotta bump those numbers up. All right. So we are going to jump into the crimes that William Clyde Gibson committed. On January 26, 1991, Clyde hit another vehicle while backing up his pickup truck, but sped off after seeing a nearby police officer attempt to inspect the damage. In an ensuing high-speed chase, he eventually crashed into yet another vehicle, from which the other driver had 8 broken ribs.
Oh, jeez.
William sustained injuries that required a number of stitches to his head, and 8 months later, 8 months later, Clyde was charged with robbery and sexual battery relating to an incident involving a 21-year-old woman who he sexually assaulted in a phone booth in the Louisville Galleria in Louisville, Kentucky. At the subsequent trial for this case, his lawyer claimed that he was mentally ill and requested a competency evaluation, also known as a 1077, which the court granted. The examining psychologist, J. Robert Noonan, concluded that Clyde had an IQ of 79, which is considerably low, and refused to take responsibility for his actions and attributed his behavior to his alcoholism, but did not suffer from any mental illnesses that impaired his judgment. So due to this, he was found competent to stand trial and accepted an Alford plea, which is a guilty plea in criminal court where the defendant in a criminal case doesn't admit to the charges, but accepts the sentence. For that, he was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment at the Luther Luckett Correctional Complex in LaGrange. Upon learning of his conviction, his wife divorced him. Finally, somebody with a head on their shoulders. Usually they're like, but we're so in love.
We're so in love.
Get out, girl. So during his incarceration, he was ordered to attend a sex offender rehab program, but he refused to admit responsibility for the crime and was deemed ineligible to participate. I wish it was that easy. Like, no, I'm not going to admit to that. I'm not going to take responsibility for that. And they're just like, oh, all right. Don't even do this stuff that you're court ordered to do. But despite being an obedient inmate who rarely caused trouble and earning an associate's degree in art, several psychiatric assessments concluded that Clyde had poor judgment and often experienced conflicting feelings of loneliness and losing control. Given these diagnostics, he and his refusal to complete the rehabilitation program, he was deemed unlikely to reoffend. He was released on April 5th, 1999, and was added to the Indiana Sex and Violent Offender Registry. After his release, he started dating Kelly Bailey. The pair had moved into an apartment together in Borden, Indiana. However, Kelly left him in 2000 due to Clyde's worsening drug habits. Later in the year, Kelly filed a police report claiming that Clyde had blocked her car with his car while she was delivering newspapers and proceeded to hit her before stealing her car keys and fleeing the scene. While her case was considered credible due to the visible injuries on her face, it was ultimately not pursued due to lack of evidence. I don't know how much more evidence you need, but... So the following year, Clyde was arrested for stealing a Harley-Davidson motorcycle and sentenced to 3 years imprisonment, but was allowed to spend half of the sentence at the Madison State Hospital in Madison, Indiana, where he would receive treatment for his drug and alcohol addiction. Hospital staff claimed that he seemed disinterested in the treatments, and two psychiatrists later diagnosed him with bipolar disorder, for which he was for which he was prescribed Seroquel, but again, no indications of a mental illness or a psychiatric disorder were noted. After his release from the hospital, he was sent to serve the rest of his sentence at the Floyd County Jail, where he remained until his discharge on March 12th, 2002. So now that we are warmed up, it's time to dive into the murder. And I spit on my screen, so give me 1 second.
Gross.
I did on an accident. Okay. All right. On October 10th, 2002, Clyde went out for a birthday celebration of drinking at a bar in Jeffersonville, where he met 44-year-old Karen Sue Hodella, a beautician from Port Orange, Florida. Karen was visiting her boyfriend at the time, and after spending some time in local bars, the pair found themselves at an apartment complex in New Albany. They argued over some prescription medication that Clyde had supposedly stolen, and angered by the accusations, Clyde punched Karen in the face, then took out a pocket knife and stabbed her multiple times in the threat, because I fucked that up. He stabbed her multiple times in the throat before driving around and dumping her body in Clarksville. Soon after the murder, he had a tattoo inscribed on his
lover's right arm.
On his lover's right arm. Jeez, I am 0 for 2. He had a tattoo inscribed on his lower right arm indicating the date of the murder, accompanied by an image of a knife. Karen Hodella's badly decomposed body was found on January 7th, 2003, and was identified from her thumbprints from a previous arrest. Her previous arrest, not his, surprisingly. 3 weeks after the murder, Clyde was arrested for driving drunk. After going through a 4-day withdrawal, he was examined by the prison psychiatrist, Dr. Daniel Howerton. While Clyde complained of frequent headaches, stomach aches, insomnia, and hypochondria, Howerton and the prison's mental health therapist concluded that he suffered from mild anxiety and had indications of antisocial disorder, but was otherwise declared sane. In May of 2003, Clyde sued the prison authorities, claiming that they had improperly denied him access to Seroquel and for housing him in squalid conditions. What the fuck were you expecting? A hotel on the beach with a good view?
Of course.
The lawsuit was thrown out, of course, as the judge considered it baseless. After being released from jail, Clyde continued hanging around bars, but on February 21st, 2006, he stole a purse and $300 from a female acquaintance. Her husband tracked down Clyde's car and had him arrested for theft, leading to Clyde serving 3 years, and was then released on July 4th, 2009. During that time, he found a job at CNC Hardwood Flooring in Borden, Indiana, and was said to be a diligent worker. His friends and neighbors stated that he even helped out on a fundraiser to help his sick mother. On the other hand, patrons of the bar that he frequented considered him strange, and on at least a few occasions, he had asked out women was asking them to visit his home. In January of 2012, Clyde's mother passed away, and it has been speculated that her death greatly impacted his psyche. On March 24th of that same year, he met 35-year-old Stephanie Marie Clerk at the Uptown Bar in New Albany, where he arranged to take her on a motorcycle ride. After spending the day doing drugs and having sex, because no good story starts with a salad, which is ironic because that's what I have sitting next to me right now, because that's what I had for dinner.
I have the drugs and sex next to me.
Oh, perfect. Yes. We have all 3 bases covered. So the pair returned to Clyde's house, where they argued over some pills. Are you guys seeing a pattern?
No.
In his anger, Clyde proceeded to rape and strangle her. He then sexually assaulted her body, breaking her back in the process.
Yikes.
So takes the phrase "break my back, daddy" to a whole new level.
He took it very literal.
Yeah, he did. He did. Hey, at least he had sex with her and then killed her and then had sex with her again instead of killing her while having sex with her.
Looking at you, Taylor's business.
All right. Clyde then buried Stephanie's body in his backyard. On April 18th, while at his mother's house, he was visited by a 75-year-old friend of his late mother. Her name was Christine. I believe it's Wittis, not entirely sure. So Christine had always supported Clyde and even gave him money. And he repaid her by raping her and strangling her before mutilating her corpse and cutting off one of her breasts.
Jeez.
He then left her body on the garage floor, surrounded by garbage bags. So the following day, April 19th, 2012, one of Clyde's sisters went to their mother's house to settle the division of the family estate. After checking the garage and finding Christine's body, she immediately notified police. Later that day, Clyde was arrested for drunk driving in the car that he stole belonging to Christine. Shocker. He was charged with her murder 5 days later, and on April 27th, 2012, Clyde confessed for the murder of Karen Hodella and also willingly led them to the location where he had buried Stephanie Kirk's body. On May 23rd, 2012, Clyde was officially charged with Stephanie's murder, as well with prosecutors announcing that they would seek the death penalty for all three killings. During the murder trial, prosecutors presented an interview Clyde had given to investigators upon his arrest, during which he claimed that an evil had overcome him and had made him commit the murder. Also, in the interview, Clyde states that he and Christine were friends. He said, "We'd just talk. I'd always tell her that she was my girlfriend, and she'd tell me, 'I'm old enough to be your mother.'" He then went on to say, quote, "My initial thought wasn't to kill her. It was just to have sex with her." On October 25th, 2013, William Clyde Gibson was found guilty in Christine Whitus's murder at a jury trial, with the jurors taking less than 20 minutes to find him guilty on all charges.
Good.
At his sentencing the following month, he was subsequently handed a death sentence, to which he told the sentencing judge that it was, quote, "no big deal," and that he deserved what he was getting. That smug little fucker. So in regards to his other murder trials, he changed his plea and waived his right to a speedy trial, choosing to plead guilty to Karen Hodella's murder instead. As part of the deal, it was decided that evidence presented at the Hodella trial would not be used as evidence or an aggravating factor in any follow-up trials. So just so that we're clear here, he went through 3 separate trials, one for each murder, just in case that was kind of confusing to anybody. A substantial issue arose when Clyde had a tattoo done on the back of his shaved head, which said, quote, "death row times 3." According to the judge, Susan Orth, the tattoo could prejudice the jury and possibly prevent a fair trial, and because of this, prison authorities were forbidden from cutting Clyde's hair so the tattoo could be covered up. So at the final murder trial, Clyde unexpectedly pleaded guilty again, waiving his right to a jury trial. In spite of the guilty plea, prosecutors pushed for another death sentence, aiming to prove aggravating factors during the commission of Stephanie Kirk's murder. On August 15th, 2014, William Clyde Gibson was sentenced to death again, with sentencing judge Orth deeming that it was, quote, "the only appropriate sentence" in regards to the brutal killing. Honestly, though, even if that wasn't the outcome, he was already sentenced to death, so kind of just a wash at that point, you know? Like, you can't kill him twice.
True.
So since his incarceration, Clyde has repeatedly appealed his death sentences, even after that sweet tattoo, with his defense lawyer claiming that his confession to the murder of Stephanie Kirk was a mitigating circumstance. I don't know what factors could possibly lessen the severity of raping, strangling, and sexually assaulting a dead body, but what do I know?
Yeah, what do you know?
Not a lot, apparently. The appeals were rejected, of course, reaffirming all of his convictions. In 2018, Clyde and several other death row inmates were featured in the documentary Inside Death Row. He has also done several interviews where he has professed responsibility for an additional 30 murders committed across multiple states, additionally claiming that he has sexually abused and even cannibalized the victims' corpses. Among the murders he has confessed to is the 2000 murder of Elizabeth Bannister. So for those of you that don't know, the Elizabeth Bannister case went cold after there were no leads. She was just 18 years old when she was stabbed to death at her apartment complex in Evansville on January 9th, 2000. So far, he has not been charged with her murder, and William Clyde Gibson is currently serving his time at the Indiana State Prison in Michigan City, Indiana. That prison houses all of the male death row inmates.
Good.
And that is my case.
Oh,
For you,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So it's kind of I don't know, it's weird that like in all of the research, like that was the only part that I found was like at the very end how he had done like interviews saying and that how he hasn't been like charged with anything else yet.
Yeah.
Probably because there's not like a whole lot of evidence to go on. But I also get the feeling that like he kind of has like that, I want to say like God complex. Like he thinks he's
Untouchable.
something so yeah.
Yeah.
Like he thinks he's like special or something, or I think he just like likes like the attention or the publicity. Like, oh yeah, if I, like do this show or I like admit to this or I admit to that, like,
Yeah.
like it doesn't make you cool, dude.
I feel like his crimes also like escalated quickly because he was just like stealing cars and crashing cars.
Yeah.
And then
like drunk driving and shit.
And then he beat one of his girlfriends or wife or whatever, and then all of a sudden he murdered them.
Yeah. It was like from like one extreme to the next.
Yeah. So it's that time again for true crime trivia. Oh my god. The hell was that? It's that time again for true crime trivia. Play along at home and see if you can outsmart us. I'll start. First question is, which couple is known for the abduction and murder of at least 5 children between 1963 and 1965? A. Fred West and Rosemary West. B. David Parker Ray and Cynthia Hendy. C. Ted Bundy and Carol Bundy. Or D. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley.
Okay. So I know it's not David Parker Ray and Cynthia Hendy because David Parker Ray,
guy.
aka the Toy Box Killer, is my favorite. And I know it wasn't Ted Bundy or Carol Bundy. Ted Bundy and Carol Bundy. I don't even know who Fred West and Rosemary West are, but I know the name Ian Brady. I'm gonna go with A. Fred West and Rosemary West.
It is actually D. Ian Brady and Myra Hindley.
See, I knew Ian Brady. I just couldn't remember what he did or what they did.
They abducted and murdered children.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah. They were good people.
Yeah. Awesome. So I tried to make these a little bit easier this week.
I fucking sucked last week.
Yeah.
Thanks for dumbing it down for me.
So, which serial killer operated in the Pacific Northwest and was known for leaving cryptic messages? Was it A. Joseph Condro, aka the Longview serial killer? B. Martin Stickles, aka the Kelso killer? C. Keith Hunter Jesperson, aka the Happy Face killer? Or D. Gary Ridgway, aka the Green River killer?
D. Gary Ridgway.
Yes, that is correct.
I did know that one.
Also, a little tidbit here about Mr. Gare, about Gare Bear.
Gare Bear.
So he both hated and was sexually attracted to his own mother. Yeah.
Like a Ed Kemper vibe.
Yeah.
Hated his mom so much he cut her head off and then fucked her face.
You skull fucked your mom?
You skull fucked your mom, bro. My last question is, what decade did Robert Ressler popularize the term serial killer while in the FBI's behavioral science unit? Was it A, 1960s, B, 1970s, C, 1980s, or D, 1990s?
C, 1980s.
It was B, 1970s. He did it.
I almost said
pulled
that,
it up.
and then right at the
actual year.
Right at the last minute.
1974.
Well, I suck today.
That's okay. We just switched places because I fucking sucked last week. I didn't even get one right last week.
Well, I didn't get one right this week, so we are even.
Even, yes.
So my second question for you is, what fruit is widely discussed in the JonBenet Ramsey case? Is it A, grapes, B, pineapple, C, apples, or D, watermelon?
I knew this at one point. I want to say it was A for grapes, but I also kind of feel like it might have been apples. I'm going to go with A, though, for grapes.
It was B, pineapple.
It was neither.
Yeah.
One of your questions right, okay?
We all know that I love facts, so of course I pulled one for this one too. So in the JonBenet Ramsey case, pineapple is widely discussed because a bowl of partially eaten pineapple was found on the kitchen counter, indicating that someone in the house had consumed it. This piece of evidence became important in the investigation as it suggested that someone had been awake and eating the fruit with JonBenet shortly before her death.
Yeah, her parents, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So that's all we have for you this week. Hope you all had fun, and thanks so much for joining us. As always, we love hearing from you. Hit us up on Facebook, Insta, or emailing us at thickthighsmurdervibes@gmail.com.
But for now, we're getting out of here. So, bye. I can't believe I lost trivia.
I lost last week.